Welcome to Who Yelling Now, Season 5, Episode 7, titled, We Call It Education. Copyright Mackenzie. As you know, Season 5's theme is, what are we calling this? Today, we call it education. Education. One of those words so large that most of us never stop long enough to ask, what exactly do we mean when we say it? Because education can sound like opportunity. Education can sound like freedom. Education can sound like hope. But sometimes education sounds like numbers, metrics, funding, performance, systems. And today, we ask an uncomfortable question. What exactly are we educating people to become? Here is a thoughtful poem I call Educate Me. In the places that survive time, with time, the earth is the educator. So when I received my degree, then stepped onto soil while breathing air and enjoying the sunshine, I thought to myself, educate me. For I have been so educated in man's school that I can no longer plant a seed, identify a weed, or tell by instincts whether rain approaches. I hold paper, yet cannot read the wind. Hold knowledge, yet cannot hear the birds warn the sky before it thunders. Educate me. Teach me the language that existed before we called ourselves educated. My fellow yellers, here is a story I hope my listeners will relate to. I call this educated by laws. Daniel learned how to count before anyone told him learning had to happen inside a building. At 2 years old, he counted horses, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not because someone assigned it, because they were there. His great-grandfather never called it education. He called it helping. Count them again, boy. Corn leaves, fence posts, eggs gathered, rain barrels. Daniel learned numbers attached to life, attached to consequences, attached to something real. His great-grandmother educated differently. She taught him manners, not compliance, respect. Say good morning properly. Look people in the eye. Respect people. Soon Daniel called everyone Mr., Mrs., Ma'am, even things that were not people. Good morning, Mrs. Sun. Good morning, Mr. Moon. How are you doing today, ma'am? He would ask the old hen in the backyard. The family laughed. His grandmother never corrected him. Respect, she believed, was practice. Daniel grew. The farm educated him. The library educated him. Ancient books, old books, new books, foreign books, history, science, culture, ideas. Daniel read everything. He knew countries before borders changed. He knew words changed meanings. A word like gay, one meaning then another. He knew culture moved, history moved, language moved. He understood want was not need. He knew our nation was a republic, not because someone told him, because definitions mattered, precision mattered, words mattered. Then Daniel entered school. School loved Daniel. At first, Daniel read above level. Daniel behaved. Daniel participated. Mostly. Then corrections began. Quiet corrections, invisible corrections, not evil, not cruel, system corrections. Daniel, stay on topic. Daniel, that answer's too advanced. Daniel, everyone is doing it this way. Why can't you? Daniel learned something: not everything that makes you larger fits comfortably inside institutions. Slowly, without intention, pieces of Daniel became smaller. Curiosity, smaller. Wonder, smaller. Complexity, smaller. Questions, smaller. The world Daniel knew became compressed, packaged, simplified, standardized. He learned there were acceptable truths, expected answers, approved interpretations, lessons connected, not simply to learning, but to expectations, to zip codes, to performance, prediction, station, a version of life quietly waiting for him. And Daniel, without noticing, began learning perhaps the most dangerous lesson education can teach. Stay understandable, stay measured, stay predictable, stay small. And today, I wanted to ask, what happens when systems built to help people slowly begin shaping people? Today, my dearest yellers, it is my honor to introduce you to Mr. Christopher Papst, award-winning investigator, journalist, and author. A man who has spent years looking inside systems, asking difficult questions, and documenting what survives when institutions say one thing while people experience another. A statement from his work that I shall remember is, the focus has shifted to value data and funding over students' future. Because if we remove students from education, what exactly remains? Christopher, welcome to Who Yelling Now. Thank you for being here. Introduce yourself to my loyal yellers.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and great introduction there. Excellent. I really enjoyed it. So my name's Chris Papst. I'm an investigative reporter for Fox 45 News, which is the local Fox affiliate in Baltimore, Maryland. And I work on a team called Project Baltimore. And what we are is that we're an investigative unit, and we launched in January of 2017. And for the past 9 years and 4 or 5 months, we've been investigating one topic. And that one topic is public education, and the amount of money that goes into it, the amount of educational outcomes that come out of it. And after 9 years, I wrote this book, Failure Factory, because I feel that there's a lot of people that really don't understand how public education is actually set up, how the laws work, how the funding work, how data is manipulated, how graduation rates are manipulated, how the standards in schools are lowered and lowered and lowered. And that's exactly why I wrote this book, Failure Factory, because I really want to, lack of a better word, educate people on what is really happening inside of public schools in America.
Wow. As someone who has read your book, I still feel as if I have a million questions. I'm just going to be honest. And I'm sure that's what most of our yellers will feel like. Even if I go out and everyone go out and we say, okay, we're going to read this book, I feel like we have questions, and that's where the Failure Factory comes into play. We can always reach out and get additional information from you. So, what are we educating people for?
Well, we're told from the public education system that we're educating people for the future, which would be after they graduate high school that they are college and career ready. That is the buzzword that Maryland and a lot of states around the country are now using, is that graduates will be college and career ready at 18, 19 years old when they graduate high school. But what we're seeing in a larger and larger way is that the students are not college and career ready, despite massive increases in funding that are being put into the public education system. So that's where the question has to be asked, the hows and the whys. How is this happening and why is this happening? And most importantly, why does it not seem to change? So I mentioned that we've been doing this since January of 2017, and this book covers those 9 years. Failure Factory covers those 9 years. And the only thing that has really changed is the funding. Most academic metrics stay completely stagnant. If anything, they go down. But the metric that always improves is the funding. Every single year, public schools get more and more and more funding, but the students don't get a better education and the taxpayers don't get a better return on that investment.
So when you look at their funding budget that's submitted, right? What would be their top line of costs that their budget is saying they need to cover? Would that be labor?
It would be salaries and benefits. So roughly 85% of the money that a school system gets, and this is the Baltimore region and Maryland, and throughout the country is probably very similar. I'm just not an expert on Louisiana. I'm an expert on Maryland, but I'm sure it's very similar in New Mexico as well, that about 85% of the money that a school gets is going to go to salaries and benefits for its employees.
So I have a feeling, and please let me know if I'm incorrect, that the majority of those salaries, though, are not our salary costs. It's not going to the actual educators, teachers, is it?
That's one of the bigger issues that we're seeing. So let's take a look at Baltimore City Public Schools, for example. Baltimore City Public Schools has about 12,500 employees. So 12,500 people are working for the school system. Just about half of them are teachers. So you have 75,000 students in this school system. Taxpayers are giving the school system about $0.8 billion a year. That comes out to about $25,000 a kid. That is a private school education. So taxpayers are paying for a private school education in Baltimore City. But yet in 2025, which is the most recent year for which we have data, because 2026 isn't done yet, 12% of the students in Baltimore City were proficient in math. 12% of the kids in the entire city. So you're looking at roughly $25,000 per student. And 88% of those students are not proficient in math on the state math tests. That is what we're dealing with, not just in Baltimore, but we're dealing with those types of numbers all around the country. And it's really, when we started Project Baltimore in January of 2017, like, how is that possible? How can you have such low academic outcomes when these school systems are getting so much money? And your question largely hit the nail on the head, which is a lot of the money, if not, you could make the case, most of the money is not getting to the classroom. It's getting tied up in the administrative state of these schools. So then the next question you have to ask is, well, why is that happening? Why are the schools set up in this structure? Why do you have 12,500 employees of Baltimore City schools, but only half of them are teachers in a school system that is supposed to have a sole job of educating kids? And the reason for that really is why I wrote Failure Factory, because what I didn't understand, and what I think a lot of people don't understand, and I would assume that a lot of your audience doesn't either, is how schools are actually set up, what the incentive structure of a school is designed to do. And here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
Before January of 2017, when I started Project Baltimore and really started investigating public schools, I thought that schools got money to educate students. that they would get a certain amount of money, maybe a bonus or an incentive to get kids to school, to increase their attendance. They would get maybe a little bit of money to increase graduation rates, increase standardized test scores, state test scores, federal test scores. I think most people think that there is some sort of funding that is tied to attendance, because attendance is extremely important in a school, and graduation rates are extremely important. Being able to read is extremely important.
Yes.
And what I learned in Failure Factory, and what I'm really showing readers, is that education has nothing to do with funding. Nothing. Schools are not funded to educate kids. They are funded to enroll kids. 100% of the funding of a school in Maryland, and if not every state around the country, 100% of the funding is based on enrollment. It is not based on any academic metric. So if you're a principal in a school in Baltimore City or anywhere in Maryland, all that you have to do is enroll a child, enroll them into your school, and you will get the funding for that child. And the way that the laws are set up is that that child never even has to come to school.
What?
And the school will still get the money because the child is enrolled in the school. And kind of like to your reaction there, you're like, what? Well, when we've actually figured that after we started Project Baltimore and began investigating public education, when we learned that that's how the laws are actually written, that's what convinced me that I had to write Failure Factory.
Wow. Are you saying it's like when almost like a subscription system? Like I go and I signed up for the gym, they can put my membership there, right there, and put how much I'm going to pay for my membership right there, on their books and stuff. I probably don't even show up because, I'm not going to exercise, right? But to that system, I am a member and I get the money. Is it kind of equal to that? I'm trying to make sure all my audience at any different level kind of understand it. Is that kind of the same thing?
Sure. Yeah. So I can simplify it even more. So in Maryland, and this is the case in most states, enrollment is taken one day a year. And in Maryland, that day is September 30th. So if you have a student who is enrolled on September 30th, that student never has to come to school from October 1st until September 30th of the following year. And that school will get 100% of the funding for that student, which, by the way, if you've read Failure Factory, you know that happens.
Yes.
That is happening. They're called ghost students. And what a school does is that they pad their enrollment by putting kids on the books on September 30th. That student never shows up to school, but the school still gets 100, not some of the funding, 100% of the funding for that child. The school will get the same amount of money as if the child has perfect attendance. If a child never misses school, the school gets 100% of the funding, as it should.
Right.
But if a child never comes to school but is enrolled on September 30th, that one day out of the year, then the school will get 100% of the funding. So that's why I'm saying that the incentive structure is not to educate kids. The incentive structure when it comes to money, when acquiring funding, is simply to enroll the student.
So when I first saw that, right, here is what came to my mind. I said, okay, so let's say 25% of the students did not show up. 75% showed up every single day. That means they should have 25% extra funding to really concentrate on those students to make sure they're turning out very well educated students. For the ones that showed up, they should have even more funding. They should be able to can go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to take this money that came in for those 25% that didn't show up, and I'm going to give teachers an increase. I'm going to make sure there's more products, better educational products in the school. But you're saying it doesn't work that way.
It works the way where if you're a principal and you can enroll a kid on September 30th, you know that you're going to get all the money for that kid. Now, mathematically, what you're talking about makes complete sense. If I get $25,000 for a student because I enrolled them on September 1st, September 30th, and that student never shows up again, I have that $25,000 that I can use to educate another child. Right. You're completely right. Yes, that the math on that would work. However, the incentive structure isn't there to educate the kids. So that's not to say that some kids don't get educated. There are many kids that get a very good public education. I went to public schools. My kids go to public schools. The point of this is not to say that there aren't any students who get education. The point of this is to say that the incentive structure throughout the country is not to educate the kids. And there are many teachers that are wonderful people, and they don't need the monetary incentive structure. There are many principals that are great people, and they don't need that monetary incentive structure. But if you're going to look at our school system, and you're going to see how over 10, 20, 30 years, it has noticeably gotten more expensive for lower academic outcomes. If you just have 20 or 25% of the people in the school system that are really going to thrive on an incentive structure and the incentive isn't there, that's a significant amount that's going to lower the academic outcomes for many millions and millions of students, and that's what we're seeing.
Okay, so here's some of the things that come to my mind, right? I understand the incentives that you're talking about. What I don't understand is the bigger picture. Why set up a system that guarantees failure, right, for your state citizens, and then by large, failure for the citizens of the United States? If your citizens are not educating, how can that be? How can that possibly be beneficial for the nation to have such a large percentage of uneducated people?
Well, I think it's certainly not a benefit for the nation, which I think is largely why you are seeing a move throughout the country that is looking more towards parental choice when it comes to how students are educated. You can look at like the big beautiful bill last year that passed in Washington, D.C. One of the main provisions in that bill is a scholarship voucher that parents can apply for so that they can send their children to the school of their choice, which would include homeschooling if they so choose, and that they would get a scholarship to be able to do so. That is a school choice, federal school choice voucher system, scholarship system that was created last year under the big beautiful bill. You're seeing states like Arizona that 3 years ago passed a universal school choice model. Florida has a very similar model, 2 states that people are moving to. And that's not to say that school choice is the end-all be-all, but what it is to say is that people are looking for other options. People are looking at the current traditional public education system, and more people are saying, this is not working. This is not working for me. This is not working for my family. I think that you would see a faster transition away from that, except those institutions are very powerful, and the status quo makes a lot of people a lot of money. So we talked about Baltimore City has a $1.8 billion budget. And if 85% of that money, as we talked about earlier, is going to staff and salaries and benefits and pensions, there's a lot of people making a lot of money. So they don't want the system to change because it's benefiting them. And in the book, I talked to a lot of teachers in Failure Factory. I talked to administrators. Yes. I talked to parents. I talked to students. And I get the feeling that many of those people say that the school system is no longer about the students. It's not prioritizing the education of students. It's prioritizing the acquisition of funding. The energy of the school system is put into acquiring the funding because that's how the adults get paid. And there's a couple people in Failure Factory I talked to that go as far as to say that public education has become a jobs factory for adults. It's a place to employ adults more than it is a place to educate students.
Right. I can easily see that. There's several institutions that falls into. And again, you have change and, good change, bad change, any kind of change. And I try not to say the current school system we have is traditional, because there was a school system, even loosely, that was prior to this one. And there's many different types of examples that we can look across the world to see how do they educate their children. So I try not to prefer one of the other, and sometimes I think there becomes a classism that's written or unwritten within our society, right? Yes, you may have a household that is able to educate their child because the parents themselves are highly educated, but that is a small percentage of the households within the United States. So then you need another choice for the other, for some of the other households. You say, okay, let's give them a voucher system. Again, a voucher system to which school? Not every neighborhood has a school that is one good or able to accept a voucher system. So each of the different choices have their own limitations, and none can be considered quite good, quite bad. This nation most likely needs some kind of mixture that will come up with it. But I think for when I look at the entirety of it, and to share with you my history, I went to Baltimore Polytechnic Institute when it was a fantastic institution to be a part of. I felt educated at that time, but I've since visited back to that school, and I was appalled at what I saw. So not to say it's gone, from bad to worse, but it was a significant change from when I attended. So one of the things that I would like you to speak on is, if you had to tell my yellers a true secret that the society or parents do not know about the school system, but they have the power to change, because most people feel powerless. They want to follow the law. They want to send their child to school to get educated. This is what they're told to do by society, but they know something is broken. What can they actually do to make a change happen that is good for their family? Do you have a secret to share?
Around the country, and what we have even seen in parts of Maryland, is that you have to get involved in your local elections. And it's not to say that you have to necessarily run, but it is to say that you need to do a little bit of research and find out who you're voting for. Who is running for city council? Who is running for your school board? Who's running for your local state office, Senate, or representative? Here in Maryland, it's called the House of Delegates. And this is why it's important, because a lot of people, the biggest turnout that we see is every 4 years when it's time to vote for president. But I would argue, and what I argue in Failure Factory, is that unless you're in the military, your local school board member has more impact on your daily life than the President of the United States. So what does that mean? What that means is your local school, the quality of your local public school impacts the value of your home. It impacts your taxes. It impacts the quality of your life. And what I mean by that is that it impacts your local economy, because if you're graduating people who can't read proficiently, you can't grow your local economy, and that's what we're seeing in Baltimore. It impacts crime rates. We know most people that are incarcerated did not graduate from high school. So your local high school impacts the most important parts of your life directly, when the president does not. And the message that I tell a lot of people is you have to be involved in your local elections, and you have to vote for the right people. And that's not a Democrat or Republican thing. What I mean by the right people is people that are going to hold the school systems accountable and say, okay, if I'm going to take the tax dollars from my constituents and I'm going to give it to a school system, that school system better give us something in return. And it better give us a better educated student. We've got to get a return on that investment. And if the return on that investment is not there, we need new superintendents, we need new principals, we need new teachers. So what we've been seeing in Baltimore for decades is that the school system continues to get more money, but the local elected officials do not hold the school system accountable for how that money is spent or the quality of education that the students are receiving. That is what has to change if you want the public education system to improve. And it's not that hard. It's not that big of, it's really not that hard. You just got to figure out who's running, do an hour or two of research on them, call them, find out, are you going to hold the school system accountable, or are you just going to give them my money and look the other way?
But let's say I think that's one of the biggest tips you can give everybody. Pay attention to what's happening locally. It affects you more. I'll say it one more time, yellers. Pay attention to your local representatives. It affects you more than what happens on the national stage. But again, if say, for instance, we talk about accountability, right, Christopher? So we want to make sure that we are following some kind of metrics to keep people accountable. Testing, performance, data. But isn't that just a big mess also? The whole testing metrics that they came up with and the performance, and even to look at the performance of teachers. And if who's giving us the data, bad data in, bad data out? How can we make sure the accountability matrix are good, or we're not just being fed corrupted information?
I have multiple chapters on that in Failure Factory, as you know. And the message here, and again, this is one of the things of why I wrote the book, is because this is something I didn't realize before January of 2017 when I started doing this investigation. And that is that schools can easily manipulate data. Easily manipulate data. They can manipulate attendance rates very easily. They can manipulate arrests, suspensions, expulsions very easily. So when you look at a school and you want to look at chronic absenteeism, for example, that's a very easily manipulated data point. The schools can just mark kids present when they're not there, which in Failure Factory, we point out how schools do that on a regular basis. But there is one or two data metrics that you can look at that are really difficult for schools to manipulate, and that is standardized testing. So over the past 5, 10, 15 years, if you're paying attention to education, you know that a lot of schools don't like standardized testing. They want it done away with. They don't want it done anymore. And you keep hearing these things like, the kids are being taught to the test, and some kids don't take tests well. And the schools come up with all these reasons for why standardized test scores are low. But this is what I will tell you. Standardized testing is really difficult for a school to manipulate. So when you hear schools that are saying, we don't want standardized testing, that is the data point that you as a parent or you as a taxpayer can look at a school and really understand how well it's doing, because the school's not sitting there with the kid taking the test.
Yes.
So if you really want to know if your local school system is good, don't look at the attendance rate. That's manipulated. Don't look at suspensions and expulsions or weapons confiscations or sexual assaults that are reported in the school. Look at standardized testing, because the school cannot, or I shouldn't say cannot, but it's very, very difficult to manipulate that data. And I'll give you, there's really good examples of what I mean in Failure Factory, but I'll give you this one example. I covered a school in Baltimore City. It was called NACA, Northwood Uphold Community Academy. NACA had the exact high school graduation rate as the Maryland average. It was 87%. So if you're a parent and you want to send your child to NACA, you move into this neighborhood to send your kid to the school, you're going to say, this is a school in the middle of Baltimore that has the same high school graduation rate as the state of Maryland. This is a really good school. However, the year that school was graduating 87% of its kids, 0% of the kids in the entire school were proficient in math.
Wow.
Not one kid. So how does that make sense? It makes sense because you can manipulate the graduation rate. You cannot easily manipulate the standardized test scores.
So, one of the things that came to my mind also was how one system feeds into the other. Usually hear, whether it's social media or in the news, how the school system feeds into the prison system, how that feeds into the union system, and so forth. Which two systems that you see that are most closely linked to the education system, where they seem to benefit from the other, so they help promote the education system staying the way it is because they benefit from it also?
I think one of the biggest ones would be college. So we've been talking about for a very, very long time in this country about college debt. And when you look at college debt, one of the big problems is that students, when they come out of high school, they're not ready for college. So they have to take remedial classes. And what remedial classes do is that it's designed to catch a student up so that they're ready for the college level courses. So what we've been seeing in America is that as more and more kids are going to college and they have to take these remedial courses, that's where they're accumulating the debt. Because the colleges, you have to pay to take the remedial courses. So, you know, if you want to get into conspiracy a little bit, now the reality is that's true. The reality is that is 100% true. The conspiracy aspect of that would be that the colleges and universities, they don't want the public education system to do better because the colleges and universities are benefiting from it because the students have to pay for the remedial courses, so they're taking out more loans and the colleges and universities are making more money. And the other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of kids run out of money because they spend so much money on the remedial courses that by the time they get into the college level courses, they're tapped out and they have to drop out. So when you have a public education system that isn't properly educating students, almost everybody loses if you're the student. But if you're the institution that's acquiring the money from that student, then you win. And we do hear a lot that there's no benefit to schools increasing the quality of their education because they don't make any more money doing so. And that's what we were talking about earlier about the incentives. They don't make any more money if they educate the kids. Right. So if you're a principal and you have 100 kids, let's say in your school, if all 100 of your kids are proficient in math or 0 of your kids are proficient in math, you make the same amount of money. Can you apply that to any other institution in America? Like, let's say you sell cars. If you sell 100 cars a month or 0 cars a month, are you going to make the same amount of money? If you're a real estate agent, if you build airplanes, if you build 100 a month or 0 a month, are you going to make the same amount of money? Well, no, you're not. But somehow, that's how the public education system was set up.
So thank you for bringing in the corporate side, because there's two groups that I think would benefit from a large amount of education about what this topic of education mess that you have brought forward. Corporate America, as well as the young people themselves while they're in school. Why is there not a community class that teaches them about this? What is occurring to them? What is actually happening to them? And see if they can galvanize a change. And of corporate America, aren't they sick of not being able to get very good educated people into their business?
Can you? I don't understand the first question. Can you repeat the first question?
So I guess what I'm asking is, right, to me, there's two groups of people that I would like to see kind of some big response from. One being corporate America. Aren't they sick of not being able to get very good educated people into their business? And the second group is the students themselves that are in high school. Can't we galvanize them to educate them on what is currently happening to them, to see if they want to be able to group together and push back? So it's two questions.
So I think for the second part of that, galvanizing the students. So I try to think back to when I was 17 or 18. Like, would I really have understood the quality of education that I'm getting? Because I didn't have any life experiences to compare it to. So maybe you might be able to convince students that they're not getting a good education and start demanding it. But when you're 17 or 18 years old and you don't have anything to compare your education to, I don't know. I mean, I think that might be tough. But I think that there are certainly some 17 or 18-year-olds out there that are pretty savvy, that understand what's going on. And as far as corporate America, I think they are frustrated. I mean, how many times do you go on social media and you hear, a carpenter saying that I'm getting this kid who doesn't know how to read a tape measure, or a plumber who's saying I'm getting this kid who doesn't understand, how to read the directions on how to install, a dishwasher.
Yes.
We hear that all the time. It's not new. It's real. And unfortunately, it's common. And these are the types of things that why I wrote Failure Factory, is because I think that as a country, we can improve the quality of education in our schools. And in the book, I explain how we can do it. We talked about one of them here, which is be active in your local political scene. Yes. It doesn't mean you got to spend 40 hours a week doing it, but just pay attention, be active, understand who you're voting for. When you get to the bottom of your ballot and it says school board, educate yourself on who those people are before you go into the ballot and vote for the right people. It's those types of things that can make a difference.
Definitely. Christopher, my last question for you today is, after seeing these difficult realities, what still gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that we have to improve the quality of public education. And what gives me hope is seeing what's happening around the country. In places like we mentioned, in Arizona, in Florida, where we're seeing this school choice movement, in the things like the Big Beautiful Bill. And again, it's not that school choice is necessarily the answer, but people are understanding that the public education system is not meeting their needs, and they want to have other options. Homeschooling in America has significantly increased in the past 5 or 10 years. More people are getting out of the traditional types of schooling, and they're doing it at home, and they're seeing great success. And when people can choose the best path for themselves is when you're going to see the best outcomes. And not every path is right for everybody. As I said, my kids go to public school, but what my wife and I were able to do is that we were able to do our research and afford a home in a really good school system. But there's a lot of people who can't do that. So those people that can't do that are the ones that are stuck in these perpetual failing schools, and they're stuck in perpetual poverty. And that is a cycle that needs to change. And it can change, but the status quo has to change. And the people that are making a lot of money in public education, they have to be overruled by the electorate. The parents, the voters, the taxpayers, they're the ones that have to take control and say, you know what, Baltimore City Public Schools, for example, you have failed to properly educate generations of students. We are no longer going to allow you to do that. We're going to give the power to the families to have them choose what is the best education for their kids. The examples are out there, the hope is out there. People just need to know what the problem is before they can fix it. And that's why I wrote Failure Factory.
And that's why I'm thankful for Failure Factory and for you. This is a generational problem. It's not just the students who are currently in school, it's their parents and their parents before that also received a failing education. So as we go out and you're asking these people to read and you're trying to educate them and let them understand, you are also hitting a wall because they were undereducated. How do I get them to understand what I am telling them when they are not even aware of the experience that they had in school, that it was lacking? So I totally see the complexity of what you're trying to do, and I will lend my voice in trying to help. I grew up believing education is one of the most important things that you can give yourself. So I understand that a lot of things that happen in the system happens without our consent, but we are not aware that we can actually change it. We keep looking at the national stage instead of the local stage. So Christopher, thank you for being here on Who Yelling Now. I truly enjoyed our time together and invite you to return anytime. You have earned your status as a true yeller. Keep
Thank
yelling the
you.
truth. Yell the truth and never stop until enough people hear you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. And if people pick up a copy of Failure Factory, please do. You can buy it anywhere books are sold. And I'm very easy to get a hold of. Chris
Mhm.
Papst, ChrisPapst.com. My social
Yes.
medias are all Chris Papst.
Mhm.
Let me know. Drop me emails. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And again, Failure Factory. Everyone, Christopher, please make sure you support him. He is working on your behalf. Have a wonderful day, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mhm. Here is a poem I call, What Do I Know? Yup, they left me behind. My fault, perhaps. Now I stand alone inside a desert. No water, getting dark. Cold approaching, silence expanding, and suddenly I begin inventory. What do I know? What do I not know? I have a high school diploma, 2 bachelor's degree, a master's, a PhD, frames on walls, paper proof that I once succeeded. Yet night arrives, unimpressed. The desert asks me no question about credentials, only questions of survival. Can you make warmth? Can you find water? Can you read stars? Can you navigate darkness? Can you identify life from poison? Can you listen to wind? The desert does not care what I achieved, only what I understand. And standing there with education surrounding me and wisdom escaping me, I whisper to no one at all. Educate me, not for classrooms, not for applause, not for titles. Teach me what remains useful after certainty disappears. My dearest friends, today we called it education. But perhaps education is not simply what enters the mind. Perhaps education is what remains when information leaves, because life eventually gives everyone an exam they did not study for. A moment where credentials sit quietly, titles remain framed, certainty disappears, and standing there, many of us discover we learned how to succeed without fully learning how to live. Daniel taught us something today. Learning does not begin inside buildings. It begins with noticing, with listening, with observing, with questions, with elders, with failure, with wonder. Christopher Papst, thank you, not simply for joining me, but for spending your years asking difficult questions, looking carefully where many choose not to look. Good people, before we leave, perhaps ask yourself this: what knowledge do you possess that no institution gave you? And what wisdom have you surrendered while chasing achievements? Because today we called it education, but perhaps the better question is, what part of you had to become smaller for you to become educated? I am Olga Foreign. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep questioning everything. See you in the next episode.